have our strip with our little unit attached to the big unit. We want to bring it over and we want to iron with the new light strip on the top. We want the solid piece of fabric on the top. All of our little units are to the bottom. Then we're going to lift this edge. We're going to press the seam open, and the seam is going toward the lighter log of the log cabin blocks that we're building. When we get it open, I take my scissors, and everywhere you have an opening between the little pieces, we're going to cut with the scissors. We want to cut toward it as straight as we can, as much on a 90 degree as we can, to get our units apart. There's a little space between them where you sew it together and you go just a little bit beyond each one before you start the next one. Then we're going to stack them all in the same direction, and we have a dark. On a log cabin, you go light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark. So we're ready for some dark strips now, and we'll do that next. We're going to take these blocks and flip them over where the red is on the upper right and the seam is pointing down, because we went red, light, light, dark. But we want the red here and the seam pointing down. So we're going to take our dark strip, do the same thing we did earlier, put it under the presser foot, hold your threads where they won't go down in there. Take a couple of stitches. Now we're going to take this first one, and I pick it up by the seam. It's just really easy that way. Put it face down with the red underneath the presser foot. Keep it even with the right side of the presser foot. Now when you come to where the light material starts, that one we cut by hand with the scissors. So it might be a little bit longer, but you can look at the edge of this one and the edge of the dark material sticking out underneath at the sewing machine and tell where the straight line would be. So we're going to sew down to the edge of this green, making a straight line as we go. We're going to put the next red one and even it up with the edge of the dark. Pull the pleat out of it, and then come on down. We'll keep doing this until we've done 120 of them, so that we don't have to backtrack and do the same thing twice. Now this is the dark strip we have just sewn to the unit that we had before. And as I said, on some of these, because we just cut it quickly with our scissors to cut them apart before, some of them will stick out a little bit, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. So when we get ready to press this unit, we're going to put it down with the solid piece on top again. We're always going to press away from those center pieces. We're going to press it open. We have a little gap between each one where we had to put the next unit on, and that gives us a perfect place to cut in between these and cut them apart. And then if I have anything hanging over, I cut that off. It doesn't hurt to have a little bit hanging over. You don't want a lot, though. So we'll get our next unit on. Here we have the unit up to this point. We have our hearth, our center square, our two lights, and our first dark. So we want to look at our block and compare it. If I set this down right here, we're ready to put another dark on there. So we'll do that now. I'm going to take these pieces and turn them over. From this point on, we are sewing to the side that has two seams coming out on it. Every time we sew from now on, it will be to the side with the two seams. So we're going to take our dark again. Remember, it's the center, and then light, light, dark, dark. So we're going to do another dark. We get our needle into our fabric good. We're going to come up here. Now, you're going to square the red to the edge of the dark strip. This light one may hang over a little bit because, remember, we just roughly cut them apart. So you want to square the red center one to the edge of the green and then line up the rest of it the best that you can. We're going to come down here, and our red is even with the edge. We sew where we come out even with the dark on the bottom when we get through that block. I'm going to start again where the red is even with the edge. And just come straight where you'll end up at the edge of the green again. We're kind of eyeballing it to make sure we're straight, but the red center block is what we want to go by. We have our pieces here. I have pressed that last dark strip to the outside, just like we did before. I trimmed them apart and stacked them all in the same direction. Now we're going to compare it to our block again. We have the dark, the light, the light, the dark, the dark. So we need this color light next, and it's going to go on that side. So I'm going to rotate my block this way and flip it over and make sure I'm sewing to the side that has two seams on it again. That's how you tell if you're sewing onto the correct side. So we're going to take this light, that's the next color. We're going to get it started under the needle. Sew a couple of stitches. Now, we're going to even this up, this center one, with the edge of this strip, because we know that's the correct line to sew on. This one is going to hang over to my right a little bit because we roughly cut them apart. But we want to aim for that center part. We'll butt the next one up against it. Make sure the center block is lined up with the edge of that underneath. As you come across it, get it started. Don't pull too hard, but pull just enough to make sure you don't have a pleat in there when you sew that seam, and then another one when you sew this seam. And we're going to do all of our blocks that way, and then we'll press them. We've pressed the last light strip that we put on to the outside. It's right here. We can compare it to our block. So the next strip we need is this brown, and it's going to go on this side. So I'm going to turn my blocks this way so that I have two seams on the side I'm sewing on. We always want the two seams once we get enough of the block made. So we're going to take our brown material, which is our last outside light, and we're going to get it under the needle, hold our thread, start sewing. Now, when we put this block on this strip, we want to line it up with this center part right here. If the other two hang over a little bit, that's okay, because we want to square up our block as much as we can as we sew. Pull on it just a little bit to make sure there's no pleat. Stay even with the edge of the brown with your presser foot. We're going to put the next one and center that center section along the new strip. And we'll get all of these on now.